Good to go? Okay. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Providence School Board meeting. I'm calling this evening's meeting to order. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is a roll call. Mr. Clerk, if you could please call a roll.
Yes, sir. President Thomas.
Present.
Vice President Garcia.
Present.
Dr. Santel. Dr. Santel is absent. Mr. Escobar. Present. He's present. Dr. Goldberg.
Present.
Mr. Abiemi. Mr. Abiemi. Mr. Abiemi is absent. Mr. Nunez.
Present.
Mr. Stevens.
Present.
Mr. Muhingabo. Mr. Muhingabo is absent. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next on the agenda is Superintendent's comment. Superintendent.
Thank you, President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Quickly, I just want to go back and bring everyone back to last night. I was at the State House fighting to keep our community turnaround action plan in place. There is a proposed bill in the Senate that I fear that will yet another address the Providence Public Schools become, and it adds more layers. This bill to me adds more layers of government and to our turnaround. Like many of you, I have seen the efforts to fix PTSD and to cut short constantly whenever we're trying to do the work. It has been cut short time and time again because the rules keep getting changed in the middle of the game, which continues to stop the progress. With more bills, more layers of red tape, it affects our students at the end of the day when we do a reset. It frustrates me because we have finally built a foundation for real success in PTSD. Working together as a community, we built our roadmap to success with our TAP. That's our turnaround action plan. Together, we've made real progress. We have already addressed themes in the Johns Hopkins report, like quality, curriculum, place across the district. We're also serving our multilingual learners, which was also the Johns Hopkins that we were not doing correctly. We have now offered up to $8,000 to get our teachers ESL certified, to make sure that the students receive the education they deserve. Fixing 30 years of failure takes time. We have finally have a strong foundation to build our success on top of all for the next several years. Working on the TAP, working with the community, we have this foundation. Now is not the time to change the rules again. I encourage each and every one of you to read the State Bill 2838 for yourself and ask yourself, what will it mean to our students? How will another reset affect their education? I know I don't have to tell the people in this room about this, but it should always come down to student first, our kids. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Please read the bill, understand what it's going to do to our students, what it's going to do to our district. My community voice is important. The community work together to build this TAP. Let's not let it go to waste. It's our time to shine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Next on the agenda is an approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion's been made by Mr. Stevens. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Goldberg. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have public comment, right to be heard My understanding is we do not have anyone signed up this evening for public comment. Mr. Clerk, am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you are, sir.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is school board comments. I'm going to begin tonight's school board comments by congratulating Dr. Martinez on being named permanent superintendent of Providence Public Schools. As interim superintendent, I witnessed Dr. Martinez bring a sense of calm to a district in need of steady leadership and restore hope for better days ahead for PPSD. Now, as permanent superintendent, I'm confident in his ability to lead our district going forward. I text Dr. Martinez to congratulate him following the appointment. He responded with one sentence: "We can do this together." I want to encourage all members of the PPSD community who have the same energy we do that we can do this together. It's time to focus on students, leave politics and all the other baggage aside. Dr. Martinez, the school board is here and ready to work with you and your team, with our educators and the community to meet the needs of our students. Speaking of our terrific students, I would like to congratulate PCTA students who recently participated in the Skills USA State Championships. PPSD students received 18 gold medals in areas such as television production and culinary arts. At JSEC, our 9th grade biomed team shined at the RI State Leadership Conference for Future Health Professionals. JSEC students took 3rd place in a field of 150 RI teams. And congratulations to all the students that participated in the Sodexo's 10th anniversary Future Chefs competition. My understanding is that an elementary school student from Vesey Street won 1st place. Nice job. In addition, I would like to extend congratulations to Providence City Councilman, Mr. Nick Narducci. Earlier this month, city and state leaders held a groundbreaking ceremony to begin renovating the old Windmill Elementary School into the newly named Narducci Learning Center. Councilman Narducci has served as a fierce advocate for PPSD, and we're excited for the Narducci Learning Center, as it will provide students with a warm, safe, dry facility and equipped for 21st century learning. On behalf of the Providence School Board, I'd like to thank Councilman Narducci for his tireless advocacy. The renovation is one of many construction projects in the district right now. We are finally replacing and upgrading buildings that have been needed for decades. I know the PPSD communications team is working to add a page to the district's website that will summarize all the renovation projects. It's a great resource for families and students to be able to track the progress. I want to shift gears and discuss public comment we heard at last month's school board meeting. Following the meeting, several members of the superintendent's team began following up with parents and community leaders. I joined several PPSD staff in meetings with parents to address concerns. And I want to take a moment to thank Ms. Patricia LaSalle, Ms. Sandra Stewart, Ms. Joan Jackson, Superintendent Martinez, just to name a few, for their efforts following last month's school board meeting to address community concerns. And I believe that we have addressed and responded to, if not all of the concerns, just about all of them. So I do want to just take this moment to say thank you to those folks. I also want to say to the community School board meetings are a platform for community members to come in, share their concerns with the district, so the district can then follow up and address those concerns. Given what the district has done following last month's school board meeting, I hope that we sent a clear message to the community that if you have questions, if you have concerns, please come to our school board meetings to express them. The school board takes the community's voice seriously. The school board wants the community involved and engaged in all aspects of student education. And I encourage school board members to ask community members, to encourage community members to come to school board meetings to have their concerns heard. I also ask school board members and encourage school board members to reach out to the community and have them come and be a part of what's happening in PPSD when they don't have concerns. We want parents and students to be involved and engaged in all aspects of their education. In terms of the superintendent's comments related to the bill that's been proposed, I would just add that regardless of which direction we go, my hope is PPSD alumni, PPSD parents, and the community is involved. The school board is comprised of that. Those are my comments. I will open it up to other school board members for comment.
Thank you, President Thomas. You beat me to the punch. I thought I was going to be the first one to be able to welcome Superintendent Dr. Javier Montañez to being the permanent superintendent. I am excited that you will be serving our community. I also wanted to thank the district for listening to the community's concerns last month and lifting the mask mandate because the community came. I'm sitting up here without a mask. So I want to thank them for that. And also I want to thank the district for creating a wellness office. I think that that's something that I've been excited about the last 24 hours. That is led by Miss Sandra Stewart. And I'm just excited about that as well. That's my public comment on tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Additional school board comments. Mr. Escobar?
I would just say that regarding the legislation, the school board, I think, could help play a role with legislative affairs that talk about the aspect of how can the school board use advocacy pieces of legislation. I'm looking at the bill, and it was introduced in April 5th. I was hearing a little bit about it last week. I'm not full-time looking at pieces of legislation, so if there's things that we could fix internally, I mean, there is a little bit of that separation, I think, around legislative affairs between RIDE, the school board, PPSD, and I understand that. But if there was sort of a committee created between those functions where we can find areas of common ground, because I 100% agree that it creates more bureaucracy and governance. It's one of those things where you put a bunch of adults in the room and they try to come up with a problem. It's like, oh, we just need more government, more other committees, more aspects to do something. So thankful for you going there with your comments. I mean, I know I've been very publicly against the aspect of the takeover, way before you and your Steve, and just because of how that structure was presented. But seeing this piece of legislation or other piece of legislation attempt to solve or whatever they're looking to do, I think it comes to a bigger problem where you have individuals that have either a breakdown of communication or breakdown of trust. And I do believe the school board, in coordination and partnership with the district can help with that with the General Assembly. So I'm in agreement in opposition of, or at least the some of the things in the legislation as it pertains to, again, another government structure and adding more bureaucracy, especially since we got to this situation with the John Hopkins report, and that was one of the things that was mostly highlighted, right? And we have a turnaround plan that I do think was effective outreach within the community. It is a good turnaround plan. So how do we use this body to help achieve those goals? And instead of sort of like debating structures in governance, like how can we just be more collaborative in providing resources for our teachers and students? So I know I've had that on my sort of agenda, what I would want to see accomplished is some sort of legislative affairs committee, and I think this presents an opportunity if you would want to explore to have sort of, you know, an interdepartment where you have school board, people within your policy department that can track these bills and just have us as an opportunity to have a voice and support not only pieces of legislation that pertain to the takeover, but other things around either mental health supports for students, ELL learners, funding in general, right? Going on to in the future. So I just want to offer that.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Additional school board comments? There being none, we will move on to the next item, which is school board committee updates. And the only update that we have here is for the finance committee. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Goldberg to provide any updates that from the finance committee.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Stevens, feel free to also add anything that you feel is important. I know you're at the meeting. We reviewed several contracts last week. The first is a Latinos for Education contract. That contract is for $40,000 and would support the additional training of several of our teachers of color. This is a new group that we'd be working with, and essentially is a leaders fellowship for our teachers that helps them develop into stronger leaders, helps retain them in the district. And what I liked about the contract is that they're also internally fundraising to support these fellows. So it's not just a ask of the district. So that's the Latinos for Education contract. The next contract is Teach for America. We've partnered with Teach for America for several years to help us have qualified teachers in our classrooms. The Teach for America teachers are often more diverse than other existing teachers in the district, and we've had positive experiences with them. So we did approve that contract. The next contract is Amplify Education. This is a contract for a new science curriculum. So we recently enacted a new English and math curriculum, a high quality curriculum, and this curriculum was recommended not only by district staff, but also the bride, and there was a panel actually of teachers and other folks that gave input into this science curriculum. It was rated green, so high quality in ed reports, and it's for K through 8. And Handshake, the Handshake contract is a contract that will allow us to recruit new talent. We've been approving contracts to help us have more ability to recruit and meet that pillar of world-class talent. Handshake is a contract that really targets recent graduates from college, and we've had trouble in the past getting the interest of that particular group, and so it was we recommended the approval of that contract. And item 15 is energy efficient investments. That is to replace boilers that are nearing their expiration date at 3 of our schools, and we've worked with energy efficient investments before. Anything else, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, no, we voted to approve most of the contracts. I just wanted to note to people that wasn't there for the Teach for America. I think one of the only concerns I brought up was just making sure that we're able to retain our teachers and educators after the requirement, what is it? I believe, is it a year, 2 years that's required, I believe? Just, is it two? Yes, after the 2 years, just making sure that we are able to retain our teachers, coming up with strategies to retain them. I know we had this, I believe for the past 12 years. And I believe we only retained, due to the data, 47 educators. So hopefully in the future, we could look into retaining some more educators through this contract. But I am excited to approve that contract on today and see come next year how this looks.
Can I just make a comment on the TFA aspect, or just retaining teachers in general? Because I know TFA has done a good job helping diversify our education workforce. But I think that whole retention of teachers, especially our teachers of color, is a systemic issue that we need more resources, more state funding to do that. Going back to the General Assembly conversation, there's been sort of a commission, right, working on to diversify our education workforce, led by Representative Alzate, different members of the committee. I know there's a pour or something that's supposed to go on now, but there should be pieces of legislation, whether that could be student loan forgiveness, I think could be huge. Obviously, compensation, bonuses, all those aspects. When we talk about sort of the great resignation going on with our younger pipeline and everyone looking at different jobs or how to sort of like suit themselves in their economy. So yes, TFA should definitely play a role with their program of how they're looking to retain their students. I know they work on building a culture of making them feel supported in general. But I would also say this is bigger than TFA. Like this is sort of a whole state policy, lack of resources to diversify education platforms. So I just want to tie that comment to the holistic view of we need our General Assembly and our state to provide more resources to make that happen. Because I've always found that's one of the biggest issues that we have going on, our human capital within the school buildings. Yeah.
Does that conclude updates from?
That concludes the finance
Yeah,
committee.
I just had a quick question with the energy efficient investments contract. If my memory serves me correctly, the district replaced some boilers at schools sometime last year. Is this a continuation of the work that has already begun with replacing boilers at schools? Mr. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Of course, that's correct. So we've replaced 2 boilers at Barton Gregorian and Young Woods in the fall, and then we're continuing to do that in the spring. And this is part of our revolving fund, which we've talked about in the facility, some of the facilities updates. So this is where, however much the contract is, we are reimbursed at up to 91 cents on the dollar. So it is money well spent, money that comes back to the district that allows us to keep doing these types of investments, so that we don't have to wait until boilers, are deteriorating. We can actually be proactive and have a schedule for replacement.
Does it say which schools are we targeting for?
I don't. I can get that list. I know
Okay.
Sal who had presented that.
Yeah, I think it's
This is
considering Hopkins and that's, gotcha.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. That's what I asked Molly on last week or 2 weeks ago.
So if that concludes the finance committee updates, I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Garcia for a health and wellness committee update.
Good evening. So health and wellness was left off of the agenda, probably because we have not met since December. And we have not met since December due to some organizational and staff changes. And with that said, I would just want to publicly thank Solite Sue for her drive and commitment to the district and the Health and Wellness Committee over the past 3 years. Solite was our previous Health and Wellness coordinator who has left to other opportunities. So we wish her well, but we also thank her so much for her commitment to that committee. And we'd also like to welcome Sandra Stewart, who is the new interim, not so new anymore, interim chief of student supports. Last night, we met with several committee members, and we heard from our 3 work groups: the social emotional health, healthy relationships, nutrition, and physical activity. And just to remind everybody or to inform folks that are new to this meeting, to the setting, the Health and Wellness Committee is our largest committee, comprised of members of the community. Within the district, outside of the district, everyone, just invested folks. And it's an exemplary committee because there is active, continued collaboration happening across the district, the city, RIDE, nonprofit community, and others that are producing really great resources for our students and families. And so, school board members, you should have received this in your packets. This is going on the bathroom stalls, and it is a flyer that actually sticks to the wall or sticks to the stall, and it is basically it has a QR code and it directs students to emotional and mental health supports for students. And basically, it's just a private way that if a student is having a tough time, if you're looking for resources, they don't have to go to a counselor, they don't have to wait in line, they don't have to physically go into an office. You can just use a QR code and get the information they need and get contacted with the folks that they need. And I just want to applaud that committee for that collaborative work. Another really great resource that came about, and we don't have a flyer for that, is called Right Time, and it is an app. I also have a flyer with a QR code on it, but if you go to your phone and go to the app button, and you type in Right Time, RIGHTTIME, you download it, and right there you can also learn about resources, trusted resources, and this is funded by the Rhode Island Department of Health. And basically, it's straightforward, medically accurate information from the Rhode Island Department of Health on healthy relationships, prevention, testing, and treatment of HIV, STI, sexual and reproductive health services and locations, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just another really great resource, private. You download it on your phone, and you can access information in real time when you need it. So we love the Health and Wellness Committee. We want to see it continue and grow, and therefore we thank Sandy Stewart for her leadership in bringing us, under the wing of the newly formed Office of Wellness. We also got a really great report from Sodexo, who are, I have to say, are exemplary partners. They're responsive, they are thoughtful, they are proactive. They are not just here to deliver services during the school day. They're thinking about creative ways of delivering services during school vacation time, during breaks, for students that need it, who are having certain hardships. And they're just really compassionate and great partners. So I just want to put that out there. And then finally, we've had a robust presentation from the, again, newly formed Office of Wellness, which encompasses school counseling office, mental health and social emotional learning, nursing, physical education and health, and alternative programming and student supports. So we welcome school board members, members of the community, parents, to our next meeting. It's going to be on May 25th, hopefully. All that information will be posted on the website. And if I'm missing anything, my colleagues, Dr. Goldberg and Mr. Stevens, joined me last night.
I just want to double down on that and thank Sandy Stewart and her whole team for a really wonderful 2-hour meeting. I know that our kids have been hurting. COVID has been incredibly difficult on mental health, and I was very optimistic leaving the meeting yesterday that we have a plan for helping our kids and our staff. So thank you again.
Any additional comments, Ms. Garcia? Members of the Health and Wellness Committee, we're good? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Okay, if that is it for committee updates, we can move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve items 11 through 17. Motion's been made by Mr. Stevens. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Goldberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is a budget update presentation. Please, Mr. Scott, will you be joining us for that?
Hi there again. Thank you so much. So, Zach Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Operations, and I know those who are at the Finance Committee met with Mr. Patisi and went through the same presentation, so I wanted to share it with the broader board this evening. So what we'll be sharing is a update on our FY23 budget. So that's this coming fiscal year that begins in July and ends in June of 2023. So this is what I kind of characterize as an initial planning, or at least what we'll be sharing as a high-level overview, and then when we come back in May, we'll be sharing the ordinances that we've shared in the past in terms of appropriation, compensation, and classification. And in the future, we'll also be talking through some of our acceleration and stimulus spending, but really focusing our time today on our FY23 local budget for the coming fiscal year. So when we look, just for context, because I think it helps kind of remind us and ground us in our local budget, over the past 4 years, we've seen roughly 2.5% growth in our budget year over year, with about 2/3 of our budget coming from state aid. So when we talk about our local budget, it really is two main components: our state aid and our city aid. There's a small portion that comes from Medicaid that you'll see at the top, but roughly that tracks with the 2.5% growth, which is in line with some of our key cost drivers like salaries and benefits, which have also grown at about that amount. You know, as we shared before, the turnaround action plan is the North Star to all our work, whether that's how we make decisions and certainly how we spend our resources. And so what you'll see here is our representation of that turnaround action plan, with our 3 key pillars of excellence in learning, world-class talent, engaged communities, as well as the undergirding kind of cross-cutting pillar of efficient district systems. So that's how we focus our budget and resource investment. We also know that while we are hopefully on the tail end of the pandemic, that there is a need to make additional investments beyond what we even need to do as a district in turnaround, and that's to support learning equity and accelerated pathways for our students. So I share that because it helps at least me and our finance team in our district think about how we think of our different funding sources. Because as a district, we have multiple funding sources, some that are long lasting, some that are recurring, and some that are one time. And so when we think about our core budget that is our local budget from those state and city resources, we want to prioritize ensuring that those investments are going into those items you see at the top that are aligned with the turnaround action plan. And with our stimulus funds, we want to either accelerate some of those investments or do things that we need to do to respond to the pandemic, whether that's in terms of student support and acceleration, but also things like facilities and technology. So, while we obviously have lots of funds that are disposal, what we'll be talking through today is really that local budget, which is focused on those core investments. We thought it was important to highlight when we look back over the past 2 years for this fiscal year in the past, what have been some of those key investments? Because those are, many of these investments are one that recur every year, that are significant, but we know is critical and necessary to accelerating student outcomes in the district. So on the left-hand side, you'll see some of the investments we made in excellence in learning. And I hope you'll see that many of these are kind of interdependent and intertwined. So while we identified and invested in a unified curriculum for ELA and math at both the elementary and secondary level, we were also investing in literacy and math coaches at the middle and high school. As those educators in our district know, to really implement a curriculum well, you need ongoing feedback, professional development, and coaching, and so those investments go hand in hand. Additionally, a significant investment we made last year that had been as a kind of a plan as part of the turnaround action plan, but became more pressing during the pandemic was the investment in guidance counselors at our elementary schools. So ensuring that all of our elementary schools had access to counseling services where prior years there were none. When we look at world-class talent, a significant investment that was made last year was to add additional assistant principals at a few of our elementary schools. The superintendent can speak to this, but we typically or historically had several elementary schools that did not have assistant principals, and so it's kind of a Herculean task for that principal to manage that full building as the only administrator. So that was an investment made not just for operating the schools, but also to help develop a bench of talent. We've also invested in 4 additional professional development days. That was last year and will be done again this year. And we know in the Johns Hopkins report, professional development was something that our teachers wanted. And so we were excited to work with our labor partners at the PTU to make that a reality. And then this is more on the one-time front, but we have made some investments in terms of signing bonuses for teachers, ESL certification support, as well as pay increases for substitute teachers. When we look at engaged communities, a significant investment we made last year was around increasing the number of, or adding school community specialists and culture coordinators at our middle and high schools, ensuring that each school had an individual whose core task was working with members of the community and working with students, not just during the school year, but after school and during the summer. We've also increased translation services to support those of our students and families who speak languages other than English. And we've also, under Chief Figueroa's leadership, moved to digitize the student records so that our record management process is easier for our families and our students. In terms of efficient district systems, we made a significant investment in terms of that revolving fund that we mentioned earlier about when talking about the boilers. That was an investment of roughly $5 million that was matched by the city, who offered $3 million. That was recently approved by the city council. And that will allow us to do $50 million of work over the next 10 years. And that's how that money revolves. As it's invested once, you get 90% back the following year and can do it over and over. We've also made significant investments in furniture and rugs at our elementary schools and technology in the form of laptops, Chromebooks, and smart boards, and have made also significant investments in PPE, health-related supplies for COVID and reopening. So we just want to kind of bring that back to align on how we, where a budget is not just a one-time kind of decision, something that you live with year over year, and so we wanted to bring those back to the forefront. I'll turn now and talk through some of the budget details for FY23. Just to give a quick overview of like a bit of a refresher on the key revenue drivers and expense drivers for the district. So as I mentioned earlier, on the revenue side, roughly 2/3 of our budget, local budget, comes from state aid, and that's driven by average daily membership, plan changes in enrollment, as well as the percentage of free and reduced lunch students who qualify for free and reduced lunch in the district. And that is the core driver based on kind of per pupil average daily membership. It's grown in recent years, but the funding formula has kind of fully rolled out, so it has slowed down a bit. And we know for this year, the governor has proposed funding to address the COVID-19 impact. So districts across the state have seen some declines in enrollment, and the governor has put forward a budget that essentially holds districts harmless for, not just Providence, but districts across the state harmless for that reduction. City aid is something we are in active discussions with the city on an ongoing basis about, but the Crowley Act does obligate the city to increase aid based on a formula that is tied to state aid increases overall. And then there's a very small portion that also goes to Medicaid and other items which account for less than 2% of the local aid. On the expense side, some of the key expense drivers, and this will help, I think, just ground us in what those big rocks are in our budget. So if you look at the first two, salaries and benefits and retirement, those on their own take up roughly 3/4 of our budget, which isn't surprising. Many school districts, or most school districts, are heavily invested in people, and therefore most of their expenditures are tied to that. We also have key service contracts in the form of transportation, our work with RIPTA, as well as custodial facilities, as well as some non-public tuition for special education. So collectively, those make up a significant portion of our budget, and along with some other items, make it, a lot of those are fixed year to year. So any changes require some often changes to personnel when you are trying to increase or decrease your expenses. So that's just an overview of how we should think through the mechanics of our budget. When we look at the FY22 to FY23, I'll walk folks through this slide, and I won't go through line by line, but just to give folks a gist of our budget both this year and the future year. So what you'll see on the left-hand side is a budget for this current fiscal year, FY22. And you'll see that line where it says total local budget revenues about 2/3 of the way down. And our total local budget is roughly $420 million. The RIDE requested budget is one based on the per pupil enrollment, but the one that we should be looking at is that governor requested line, which includes the stabilization fund for enrollment changes that the governor has proposed. So taken together, you'll see an increase of roughly $3 million from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23, most of which is in the form of city aid, while state aid is largely fine. So that gives you a sense of where our revenue projections are at. What I'll do next is talk through how our expenses are projected for next year. So what you'll see on the left-hand side is of the bar chart at the top is our FY22, and obviously as we're in the middle of this fiscal year, it is a balanced budget. FY23 shows the preliminary projections both for the revenue and expenses for the coming fiscal year. On the revenue side, you see that, as I just mentioned, we were projecting a roughly $3 million increase, but we are seeing larger than that increases in expenses. And I would say the large majority of those come, again, as we mentioned, in terms of budget drivers, are in salaries. So whether that's our labor contracts, some of the changes we made in special education to reduce class size, but also benefits. Collectively, those come to roughly $8 or $9 million. There's also a provision that as a district, the revenue from the city passes through us to students who are enrolled in any charter school in Providence, and that accounts for another portion of that increase. And then we do expect to see we had an increase in technology equipment last year, and so a small reduction of $1 million gets us to around a $12 million increase. So fairly significant year over year. But what I want to talk to next is our proposed plan to close the gap for that coming year. And obviously we work over the next few months to refine these both on the revenue side and on the expense side. So we do anticipate seeing some utility and service savings, and I'll hop down a little bit, as well as bus reductions next year. And collectively, those are about $750 million. The utility and service savings have to do with some of our facilities going offline, such as building debate, as we're doing construction at that school next year. We're also proposing some more kind of aggressive projections around benefits and salary attrition. So salary attrition is what we use to project salaries, knowing that at any given time we won't have, we'll have some attrition in our positions. And so that both on the benefit side, which we're waiting on the city for estimates on, and the salary attrition side, collectively is around $1.5 million. We'll also work with our non-local funds to both think of position shifts as well as some of our summer programming for the coming year. And then lastly, we do anticipate seeing, we are running fairly positive in our salary line currently. And so some of that money at the bottom, you see that 4.2 can be rolled over to the following year. And so collectively, we would see that as closing the gap for the coming school year. So much of the work and what we'll present next time when we're with you is any refinements there. But this is, in many years there is a gap to start, and we work to close it, and we're confident we'll be able to do that again this year. Just to flag a few things that are, we obviously monitor in the coming months, both months and years, knowing both the short-term and long-term impact of our budget. Obviously, the FY23 state aid that we talked about is proposed right now. It still needs to be voted on by the legislature. That will typically happen later in the spring and early summer. Fringe benefits, as you know, are a large portion of our budget, roughly 25%. And so that is something that we work closely with the city on. And we have not received final benefits projections from the city, but you saw in the previous slide, we were making some adjustments based on some of the early data we're getting. Funding formula and state aid adjustments, while we know there's been the kind of short-term stabilization funds, We're obviously paying attention to any longer term adjustments that the state might make to the funding formula, knowing that, we are the only district that has seen some of the enrollment declines as part of the pandemic. City revenue contribution, that's been an ongoing conversation with the city of Providence and impacts funding across multiple years. But that is something we're optimistic that we'll be able to work out with the city. And then bigger picture and longer term is addressing our key cost drivers. So last year, we shared some analysis we'd done about what we saw as some of our key cost drivers. And if you remember, there was a chart that had our expenses over time growing slightly more than our revenue. And year over year, that gap grows bigger and bigger. And so really, as a budget maintenance effort, we need to identify what those, we have identified what those cost drivers are, but find ways to address them. So that is some of the work that, we don't need to do for FY23, but we do think we'll need to do for the following fiscal year in FY24. So we're going to be starting in the next few months on working on that, because a lot of that work, whether it's our service contracts, our school staffing, special education, or district footprint, those are efforts that take a lot of time to do right. And so that's the work we'll be getting underway in the next few months, but anticipate that going over the next year. So lastly, before I open the last slide here, is just what comes next. So we'll be sharing, we'll do a revised presentation with the full board in May, and out that we'll share ordinances that kind of as we typically do. We'll also be developing our budget book that has more details beyond that. And then if history holds, we'll be meeting with City Council in June to share our budget and discuss our spending plan for the coming year. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that the board may have.
Questions from the school board members? Mr. Scott, I have a couple of questions. If we could go back to slide, it's page 9 on mine. I don't know if it'd be the one on yours. Is titled budget details. Yes. So under city aid, can you talk a little bit more about what the nature of the conversations with the city has been like?
Sure. So the Crowley Act identifies that the city is required to increase their aid to the district at the same rate that overall state aid increases year over year. So if the state gave out $100 last year in state aid, and they're giving out $103 next year, a 3% increase, that is what our interpretation of the Crowley Act is, that they would have to increase the aid by that amount. Obviously, this is the first time really the Crowley Act's been implemented, and so the city has we haven't always seen eye to eye on that. And so there is some folks may be aware, some litigation from the last fiscal year about that. And I think both parties recognize we want to have some clarity and closure so that we aren't discussing this year after year. So I anticipate in the next few weeks getting to that point of clarity. So we're in kind of for past fiscal years in some litigation, but for this year we're optimistic that we'll be able to kind of wrap it up for both pass and then get it forward.
I'm hoping so as well, just given the budget gap that you're projected, it certainly would be helpful if the two sides could come to an agreement. Yeah. My next question for you is on slide 12, budget overview. Here you mentioned that utility and service savings, and you mentioned debate as an opportunity for the district to save. I'm curious about the space that the district is leasing on Niantic Avenue. I don't see that here, and I'm wondering if we are planning to continue leasing that space, and if we're not continuing to lease the space, what would be the cost savings for that?
So we are not planning to continue that lease. So we'll be notifying the landlord in the coming month about that. That lease, I believe, is funded off of ESSER at one time, so that's why you wouldn't see it reflected here. But it's roughly, I can't remember the exact amount, so it's a little less than $100,000. But we will not be renewing that lease for the upcoming year.
Okay. And my final question for you, with regards to bus reductions, I'm assuming that is due to the enrollment change in the district. You're projecting that we 5 less buses will be on the road as a result.
That's right. So when we look at overall roughly the number of students we anticipate, we've seen enrollment declines related to that. We could see savings related to that for buses.
Thank you. Additional questions from board members?
I have a question regarding, or a clarifying question, from slide 4. We have state funding, city funding, and other. Would you describe, where that other funding is coming from? Just like a few examples.
Yeah, so the biggest one there is Medicaid. So we get Medicaid reimbursement for when our related service providers provide services to students. And I think that accounts for roughly 2/3 of the other of like 4 million or so to 6 million. And then there's another, the next biggest bucket, or maybe nearly all the rest is indirect revenue. And that comes from when we spend federal dollars like Title I dollars, the part of that can be taken in as indirect revenue, as in, because we need the administrative staff to process any of the payroll that comes with Title I. So the federal government, as part of the Title I allocations, gives the district a portion of it. I can't remember, Chris Matisse would know the rate exactly, but a portion of your federal dollars that you spend is given back in the form of indirect to the district, so that they can staff positions and do other things that are necessary to support our CRP.
Okay, so that other doesn't count any like grants that come in, philanthropy, none of that.
No.
So at some point, can we have, not now, but at some point, can we have a conversation regarding the fund development, grants, philanthropy, other supports that are coming in to the district to enhance services, right? Because this budget just covers operations basically. Can we have more of a conversation around that and how we can put some effort behind increasing those efforts? Because I know that in the past, I feel like maybe 5 years ago, definitely before the takeover, we talked about having some sort of foundation sort of work coming, on behalf of the district, partnering with Rhode Island Foundation and some other entity to help bring in more dollars to the district to enhance services, to enhance things, because we can't always rely on, we're not always going to be under this COVID, umbrella of funding that's coming our way. We're not always going to have a collaborative governor or mayor or whoever, and so we need to find other partners that will help us cover those gaps.
Yeah, that's smart. We can certainly come back and talk to either existing partners we have, but ideas on how we can build momentum. I 100% agree. With stimulus dollars we have now, it's great, but we need to have a long-term sustainable source of other aid from educators.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Additional questions from board members? Mr. Escobar?
Based on teacher salaries, if I could be reminded for the contract, what is sort of the guaranteed raises that we would have for the duration?
Sure. It's 2% next year.
It's 2% next year.
And then 0.5% at the end of the last day of the school year or something like that.
I think so. Can get you certainly.
Yeah. The total 3-year was 6% overall, and I think the next year was 2%.
Yeah, so that ties on to the budget. I think Vice President Garcia's question is spot on. I think there are school districts that have foundations. I think there are some maybe. I think there's a partnership around foundation.
The Kindling the Dream was, I know, something that the district had. It was a partnership that existed before, but could be.
And I think my comment is more about like the future of Providence, because going through a number of these budget sort of scenarios, or just aware of how Providence has been funded previously. I'm really concerned about the wages of teachers, not only in Providence, but just like, I guess, America in general, just given the vast options that individuals can choose to make money. And if the beginning salary, I think $45,000, you can't afford to live by yourself in the city. You need 2 or 3 individuals. And that's one of the goals that I think a lot of elected officials and people on the school board, we would love to have educators be able to afford to live in the city. So whether that's, workforce housing options and all of that, that's bigger. But in 5 years, if our salary, beginning salary is $50,000, matched with inflation, matched with high increase of just housing costs, what type of talent are we going to be looking to recruit within our schools? I think that is a major, massive concern, right? To live in the city, I think to live by yourself, you're probably going to need to make $75,000, and then maybe you'd be paying a little bit over 30 or maybe close to 40% of your expenses on rent and living. And that's in the higher end of the scale to be a teacher in the city. I don't think it's going to get any better with the housing crisis. So I wonder how during this takeover, when looking at world-class talent, we can't ignore, I think, what the problem of just how do you retain that talent, just salary. People who want to be teachers, love to be a teacher, but then if the math ain't mathing, in terms of like living, and there's other options to be elsewhere. Yeah.
I totally would agree. I think I should have this memorized by this point, but when you look at our teacher salaries in Providence, the starting salary compared to some national districts is on the bottom quartile. The top end salary is on the top quartile. So we have to figure out a way to make sure, the incentives we have that we're using now, I think are good, but they're a Band-Aid, frankly, for getting raising the early career teacher salaries, because that's what we need to do to bring in the profession. And add on to that, our teacher assistants. Those roles are critical for the district, but are frankly, in my mind, one of the best long-term pipelines for teacher talent in the district, particularly in the areas where we need teachers like special education, where many of our TAs are already working. So I say that to say it's not just about, I think of our starting teacher salary, but I also think of our pipeline roles like TAs needing to do some investments. We are talking with 1033 and had an agreement about how we could support TAs moving to teacher roles. And we're looking forward to kind of our longer main table negotiations that we're starting with them.
And I think, one of the roles school board could play, or just the district, would be just working on how are we going to bring world-class talent? How are we going to make sure salaries are competitive? Because even if you're a teacher and you're in the higher end of about $70,000, $80,000, depending on what certifications you got, maybe close to 90, if there's a job opportunity in like a tech sector, startups, things that are just sort of growing, especially in this virtual space, there's companies that will hire you, and you go living, we're working at a lot of people moving from Boston, people are living in Rhode Island, getting Boston, New York type jobs. It becomes very attractive to this younger generation of individuals that we want within our school district. So I think if there's anything in the future, part of the turnover plan that I'd be really interested in working in. I think there are members within the General Assembly, and we're gonna have a whole new city council, a whole new mayor. I'm thinking, sort of next year in advocacy, if there are legislation or programs that we can work together on that specific issue, it's a problem I don't think that gets talked about enough. And it's just one of those things that I think about with looking at a budget, knowing what the starting salary is.
Yeah, the last thing I just add on is, we are excited about working with the Rhode Island Foundation on the loan forgiveness program for educators of color, which is 25 for supports 25 people per year, and they get up to $25,000 loan forgiveness, which is awesome. The 25 people is just a drop in the bucket in terms of what we need for talent.
Absolutely, and I think the Wave Maker program within Commerce could be another addition. Maybe out for STEM educators, I think they can apply for it, but I would love for that program to be just about for teachers or educators of color in general. There's a lot there, I think, once this political season comes, subsides.
Just confirming, Mr. Escobar, it is 2% and 0.5% on the last day for the next 2 races.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Additional comments or questions from board members? There being none, Mr. Scott, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move to our next presentation, Pleasant update, I'm going to move back up in the agenda to public comment, right to be heard. Ms. Williams is here and had signed up for public comment. So Ms. Williams, if you want to come forward,
loving the budget though. Mr. Escobar, I like the way you think, sir.
Ms. Williams, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. I won't be too long.
Okay.
I just wanted to come and say, first of all, good evening. And I love the questions that are coming up. I feel like you're all in my head. I just wanted to say that you always hear the stories of when things are not going well. I was here last month and I was just like done with you all. But I think it's good to also come and share the good stuff. And things are going really well. I'm so glad. Thank you so much, School Committee Board, for keeping your promise to stand behind me through a difficult time with my son's education. I must tell you, I love where he is. He loved where he is. He made me a bracelet today. And I'm just happy to come and say that to you. I also wanted to say that I'm glad that you mentioned Sandy Stewart, because I don't think that we know that Sandy Stewart and Christine, who works with her, they are essential to us parents, to things getting better. The experience that I had with the school board and with Sandy Stewart's office was amazing. And I think it's important to share when things are going well. And my son is happy and I'm happy. I haven't had a phone call in 2 weeks and I'm like, is everything okay? Should we call? Should we text him? I like shaking it. He comes in, oh my God, it was a good day, Mom. I'm like, oh my God. And my husband works the overnights and, when he comes in, he wants to get some rest. And he's like, hon, did you hear anything? I'm like, no. Your phone rang? No. Your phone did. And we're like, we just can't believe it. And I know that sometimes they say don't put it in the air because things may change. I'm putting it in the air because I'm owning it. Things are going well. Superintendent, I'm so glad that you're superintendent. You wrote an article out that you shared over the weekend. And I had my son read that article. And I had him read it because the article spoke of a storm and knowing how to get through a storm. And I don't know if you all listen, but every time the superintendent speaks, he loves to say, we have to move forward. Now I understand why you say that so much, because you definitely move forward through your storm. But I think the article, I hope families allow their children to read it, because those children that struggle, it will give them the tenacity to move forward like you did with your education. And I commend you for that. I also want to say I'm glad that I came in time for the budget, because I had concerns about the budget as well. I'm going to be really quick. I'm wondering, the gentleman that spoke of the budget, and we talked about the Crowley Act just really quick. I'm wondering, when we take that to legislator, is there any way that we can look at an amendment just because of the pandemic? We know that the numbers came out last, I think it was on the 20th, there was an article about Rhode Island students, the ages between, I think it was 10 to 24, those school ages, those numbers were high for SI, for suicide. And I heard the Wellness Committee, oh my goodness, you are amazing. I'm wondering if there's some way that when we go up there to legislature, that we can ask for an amendment within that Crowley Act due to the pandemic. All of the reports that we've seen this night, and I love it, I love budget stuff, you have to speak with all that. And there were so many loopholes, but I think the one thing that we should, I don't want to use the word make, advocate for, the governor not allowing to just tell us that our enrollment numbers are dropping or they're not where they need to be. The mayor said he's giving money in his statement. The governor said he's giving money, but we need an itemized budget line for health and wellness. And I just wanted to come in this evening and say that we're going to get through the storm, and I think it's good for you to hear when things are going well.
Ms. Williams, thank you so much for joining us. And again, thank you, Ms. Stewart, for all of your assistance and support with families.
Can we just call so that the school is Hopkins that has done a tremendous job in supporting?
Easy Hopkins.
Yes, Easton Hopkins. And I think, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't want to throw it out there, but I love that school. And I think that school can help us with a lot of the work that we're doing when it comes to children that are dealing with different things, in addition to the QR codes and those stickers. That's amazing. But there's some stuff going on over there that I don't know if we're aware of. But they found a way to work with children that are having a good time, and the staff is present. I mean, I'm not saying we're perfect,
right,
but they're right on stuff and they're doing it. I'm telling you, I don't get calls, and my son loves it, so I'm happy.
Good.
He is too. He's happy.
Really quick. Thank you for coming. I want to encourage you, if you hear anything from like any other parents, let them know about your experience and tell them to come to the board meetings. I think President Thomas talked about that earlier. That means a lot to hear that. That
I've
really
already
does.
been doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Williams. Okay, I want to go back to presentations. And next on our agenda is the Mount Pleasant School update. I'm really excited to hear about Mount Pleasant High School. There's been a lot of discussion about Mount Pleasant. And there's been a change in the leadership structure at the school. And I am excited to hear more about what is taking place at Mount Pleasant High School. So I believe we're joined, in addition to Ms. Jackson, I believe we also have a number of the administrators with us as well. Ms. Jackson, if you want to get us started.
I will not be staying, I'm just doing the
You just do it, okay.
I just wanted to give everybody some context because we have been working to improve Mount Pleasant. We have provided interventions along the way. We have this level 1 intervention where we had provided some additional support with some planning and looking at the programming and scheduling. Our level 2 support where we added some additional community specialists and team members. And our level 3 intervention is where we had a change of leadership. I do want to say thank you to a whole bunch of people who, when we got to the all hands on deck moment, everybody stepped up, and it's really important, just like we've heard with Sandy and Stuart and that team. So I want to say thank you to Misty Parsons, James Boyd, Patricia Royal, Mark Catone, Jay Menard, Scott Sutherland, Joe Capella, Sandy Stewart, President Thomas, and Mr. Stevens. So thank you all for helping us to make Mount Pleasant a better place for our students. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce our new principal, Tiffany Delaney.
Ms. Delaney, thank you for joining us. I believe you have some of your team with you as well. So feel free to begin when you're ready.
First, I want to publicly thank Providence Public School District for all of the support that we have had. It has been absolutely amazing since I've been there. I pick up a phone, done. So I'm just overjoyed with all of the support that we've received at Mount Pleasant. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So just a little information about myself. My name is Tiffany Delaney. Really excited to be here. Just to give you a little bit about my career, I've been in education for 15 years. I have had the extreme pleasure of teaching in the classroom, scheduling, being an assistant principal, being an instructional coach. My love for education came from high school. All of my teachers that built relationships with me, I knew by like my freshman year, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to school to be a teacher. So from there, that's where my motivation came from. I wanted to be that person to be able to help other students just like teachers helped me. So in between that time, I am glad that I'm here. I've been able to, before then, accomplishments, raise graduation rates, specializing in instructional supports within classroom teachers. I've been able to meet and exceed school goals in some positions that I've been in. And I'm looking forward to doing all the same things here at Mount Pleasant. So we've been working very hard. So I want you to meet the team because it's not just me. My support is here. I have Mr. Vila Orr, our 9th grade assistant principal. We have Dr. Stephanie Harvey. She oversees 10th grade assistant principal and half of my 11th grade. We have Mr. Michael Marino. He also sees half of 11th grade and all of our 12th graders. And another backbone support for us is our TNTP fellow, Aileen Chang. We have worked as a team to put some strategies and some systems into place in Mount Pleasant within the last 30 days. A lot of that has centered around safety policies and procedures. making sure that teachers are at their doors in between class changes, outside on their time, just out in the hallways, making sure that they are helping to usher and support students back to class. We have done a really great job with that. We have about 93% of our teachers that are very consistent with helping us in the hallways. Our community specialists are a gem. They are out there all the time. I can't say enough about the community specialists and everything that they have stepped up to do within this past time that I've been there. So we have been supporting and praising the students and teachers through programs and PBIS and Bean Bucks and awarding them. We have a drawing every Friday for them just to, work with the culture and the atmosphere and praise them for all the work that they've been doing. Our most important thing that we are really proud to have started are social and emotional groups. We started with our staff by taking them through trauma-informed PD. And with that, we were able to help with that situation and also help think about what the students go through and how, as adults, we attempt to respond to them and help them throughout. We can teach them all day, but that piece, that social emotional piece, is very important in our classroom to help our students succeed. So we've concentrated on that. We're now starting our student support team. Our student support team has a refocus room. So if we have students that just need that moment, that needs to go to a room to refocus, they have opportunities each period to do so. We do have a lunch refocus room where they can eat their lunch and take part in a restorative circle. We have our psychologist, our social worker, and community specialists, and everyone in there on a cycle to be able to assist them during that time. So instructionally, we started by conducting walkthroughs of every class period so that we can kind of go through and assess our instructional need. Within that, we saw that PLCs, we use that to have our PLCs to determine that instructional focus. So everything that we see and collect in the classroom, we're working with our TLs, meet with our TLs. Each one of the assistant principal coaches the TLs so that they are with them and supporting them in PLCs so that that classroom connection is there. We have about 43% of our teachers who are consistently providing formative assessments. 56% of our students are finding their class engaging. So we are working with those items and PLCs and bringing those and strategies to our teachers.
What's a PLC?
Oh, a professional learning community.
Can you also tell them what TL?
Teacher leaders, our teacher leaders, because we're content area focused. So we are just really focusing on prioritizing the classroom need and providing that individualized student support. We're really proud that the team, the guidance counselors, the admin team has worked hard for the seniors and some of our juniors who just needed to go through credit recovery and try to, work a little more. We provided boot camps for them. April boot camp was a success. We had 48 students show up for boot camp to go through credit recovery. So it was really that additional support. They all loved it. We rewarded them at the end of the week. They had their nice little pizza party at the end of the week after they were finished with their credit recovery and gift cards. So we are working now hard to engage our families. We've had some family events, and we're still working through that process right now to try to re-engage the community inside of Mount Pleasant. So as a result, we've noticed that because of our advisory time, we do have check and connects that happen. Each teacher meets with each student during advisory time to check in on grades, help them with assignments, things that they need. As a result, every grade level has had an increase from their grades, passing grades, from quarter 2 to quarter 3. So I'm going to have my wonderful admin here talk about PBIS program and some of the things that we are doing to celebrate our students.
All right, good evening again. So this really is about bringing joy to Mount Pleasant. That's a big piece of what we want to do as a leadership team, is make sure that our students enjoy being there, as we know that they do. So some of the things that, as Tiffany already explained, we have started the Beam Bucks. So it's an opportunity for teachers to give out Beam Bucks to students when they see that they are implemented in any of our school values, as well as we award teachers each week too. So that's a great way for us to all kind of stay connected around our school mission. Spirit Week is something that we're planning right now with our PBIS team. So that's going to be coming up to get our students just even more excited. 80% of our students in our teacher academy have passed their Parapro assessments, and they are certified paraprofessionals. So when they graduate, they're going to be good to go. So that's amazing. 9 of our students have participated in the paid partnership with George West. So they've been in the classrooms with the elementary students and learning and bringing that back. So that's really great. And then just some other great things that we're planning is advisory game day, going to pilot if we're going to have student clubs ran by teachers and teachers with their passion, whatever they want to run, so that we can switch up advisory a little bit. So if a teacher likes to do something like chess, then we'll do chess during advisory, or something like knitting. So teachers and then students can self-select. So we're going to pilot that this year. We just participated in Brown College Day, so students got to go to Brown, which was an amazing opportunity for them. And then we just have a number of end of the year field trips and senior days planned. So again, just trying to bring that joy element to our everyday, really, at Mount Pleasant. This last one too is just talking about, we've made a recent connection through one of our TAs, actually has helped us create this connection with the Federal Hill House, where students are able to work with the program in a 6-week program where they'll be paid to work on a community service project, or really like any project that will have a social impact. So they can decide what project they want to work on, and then they're able to continue to work on that for 6 weeks. And then they have another opportunity when they're done with that. Either we can have 32 new students or continue with the 32 students that we have. So it's 2 weeks after school and then Saturday. Students have been showing up for interviews, and they're just in that phase right now, but it's a great opportunity for them. So thank you all again.
It's exciting to see all the things that we've done at Mount Pleasant, and I'm really excited to continue the work. So we have some goals that we would love to reach by the end of the year. We're working hard to reach them. We would like 80% of our current seniors to graduate before the end of next summer. By the last day of school, we're looking for 60% of our students to be on track for post-secondary success. So all of 60% of our students passing and ready to move on. And then we are really looking forward to parent participation. So re-engaging that community, we're working with that. Our PTO is brand new, so I've had an opportunity to work with them, and we are planning in the planning stage of planning things and events for family engagement to work toward bringing that community to the building. Oh, thank you. So I did forget that we do have a parent office downstairs now. It's a family office. The PTO does run that. So they are starting, actually, they have a donation drive that's coming, and the book bags will be there tomorrow to give to deserving kids that are filled with food. We have toiletry items and clothes for deserving families that are in need. So we have been really working hard to come up with programs and to bring in the community, to re-engage the community into Mount Pleasant.
Before you move on, Tiffany, can you just go back to that one you said? It's something that's really close and dear to my heart. And right now you should know. My nucleus is student. When I see PTO, it's parent teacher organization, let's have PTSO, parent teacher student organization. Their voice needs to be heard.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Laney, before I open it up to board members for questions or comments, I want to begin by just saying thank you. I know that this was not your traditional appointment as a principal to a school, but you handled it with stride and grace. I met with you at the school and had a really good conversation, and within 5 minutes, I let Ms. Jackson know that I think the district had made the appropriate choice here, and you and your team have not disappointed. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for any additional comments, questions before I jump back in. Any questions from board members?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to I have a smile on my face right now. I haven't and it hasn't been too long since I left high school. I didn't go to any traditional Providence high school, but I'm aware of, the struggles that a lot of high schools face. And I want to say that it made me want to be a student at Mount Pleasant. I think incentives is very great. It's not just because incentives allow students to be engaged, but it allows them so that you guys care. And I see the drive and determination, especially with the goals that you guys all have set in mind as a team. I know you guys will achieve it, and I'm here to support as well. And I'm just very, 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 very amazed by the work that you guys are going to be doing and the work that you guys continue to do. So keep up the great work, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do in the future. All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nunez. Mr. Stevens, did you need to, was you gonna jump in?
I got a smile on my face. This is the best news I've heard all year. I'm not even gonna lie. I want to thank you, Principal Delaney, for taking the job. I know it probably wasn't easy, and that's probably not what you thought you was gonna do when you started the year. But from what we heard last month about Mount Pleasant to where we are already at, I'm excited. Like Jesus said, I want to be a student again. You would have enjoyed me too. Ask Mr. Hall, he's my president. But I am excited and thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Additional questions or comments from board members?
I do. So this is a really great presentation. I'm really happy to see a change in leadership at Mount Pleasant, given that I've gone through, I think, 3 principals, because there was 2 co-principals in 2 years, and inconsistency, right, for anything. A company, a school, a culture, trying to build that is not great. So with that being said, and I would want to say, President Thomas, that would love to see presentations in the future from principals, if we could organize that. This was really great. So we could continue on that pathway. Because there's been that. My first question, because I have other, I saw partnerships and I have other questions on that. My first question in general is, how do we support you to make sure that you can be successful in your position? And I would welcome as much transparency as possible, whether it be the school conditions, the infrastructure. We have a lot of money going from the bond into, I don't have it in front of me, but I don't recall Mount Pleasant being near the top of the list. Maybe that's something that we can revisit, since we're looking to really invest and put a spotlight on Mount Pleasant. When I took a tour pre-COVID there, it seems like there could be a lot of work done in that school building. I see you nodding your head. So infrastructure improvements, but in general, how do we keep a principal of color in our school district and successful? And again, I welcome anything the school board can do, the district can do, because we're putting a spotlight. This is a wonderful presentation, and it seems like everything's off to a great start. So we want to take advantage of this opportunity right now.
So I will say this. I have thoroughly, when I said earlier, I've had support, I have had nothing but support. I sent an email, hey, can someone walk through the building with me? I just want to walk through and show you all the things that need to be fixed, or my dreams. And right then and there, I get an email back and they're there. I've had operations in my building. I've, from the superintendent, everything in my building to come through and provide me with the support. I asked for a work order. I put in a work order. It's been done. Like it's been the best experience sitting in this seat, and anything I've asked for or questions that I've had has been done. So that support, if we can keep that support, it's successful and it's best for the students. So right now, I can honestly tell you, I'm in a good place. But I just want to make sure that all the support that we continuously get, that has been going on for the past 30 days, probably longer than that, that we continue to receive that support, because we've had a lot.
And that's really great. That's really great to hear. I have questions around partnerships. Rhode Island College, I believe in the past, had a partnership with Mount Pleasant. I know they're going through a change with principals. What is the status of that? If there is
So
anything?
we still have support with Greg.
Okay.
They're very active with our teacher academy.
Okay.
Our students go with there. And then we've just picked up a partnership with, for pre-engineering through Polaris. So we have that. So right now, I have a great group of teacher leaders that are out, reaching out for partnerships and working to get those things. So we have those 2 partnerships. We're looking to grow in the CTE area and offer more programs. I'm looking toward that and looking into that now.
Okay, I'd be happy to be a thought partner offline on some companies or opportunities with that. I'm an alumni with Rick, and well, interested to see who it hires in the present, but I think like we're Mount Pleasant, just given that Rick's there, should be like really adopting that school. It wouldn't be great if there was sort of like a guarantee, like at least you get into Rick if you go to Mount Pleasant as like another incentive, right? PTSO, I like that sort of aspect and adding like the student. But I've always felt in this could be different in other cases, but wouldn't it be great if we had like stipends for the individuals who participate in PTO? And if there are stipends, like I'm sorry for not knowing about that. But yeah, I just want you know but I think that's another potential private-public partnership when we talk about how do we engage parents, how do we engage students to actually be leaders within the schools. So whether that's, and it doesn't have to be crazy stipends, but you know, what if that's a partnership with, you know, one of the funders that we have given out money for Providence around the turnaround plan. When you have money, when you have sort of supports with governance, right, it sort of breeds a different level of participation, given, obviously, you know, speaking to the choir, given to where our community is economically. So I just want to offer that as well as an opportunity to explore.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Any additional questions, comments from board members?
I have a question. In terms of like outreach to get more parents involved, have you guys had any goals in mind in terms of, you know, realistically coming up with a number for like maybe next year, upcoming school year, in terms of getting parents more involved with their students, engagement not only inside but outside the classroom and ensuring that they're successful?
Yeah, so one of the things that I know that we've spoken about, making sure that we start next year with the community specialists is more parent outreach and more community outreach. Right now, they've been very instrumental in going out to try to make partners with different businesses. So right now we have a partnership with Walmart where they've donated things, Family Dollar, they have donated things. So I was looking, we have events that'll be in the summertime, bringing back our family day, things like that. Now that COVID is over, we can go back to a little bit of normalcy. So we, is it really? A little bit of normalcy. So we've been looking into some events and making sure that we have a parent engagement team there to help assist with those ideas.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nunez. Mr. Stevens.
I know I'm tired, but really quick, and this is, I think, a district question. Do we have the PTSO in other schools, or is this something new?
It's new for the district. It's extremely old for me. This is something that I've done in every school that I've had, even in elementary. Student voice, student council, student representation. Students' voice is extremely important, so it's something that I've always done, but I'm not sure if everyone else in the district is doing it. This is why, with the start that we have starting here, is nothing less than important to have the student voice.
Any additional questions, Mr. Stevens? Okay, Ms. Delaney, before we wrap up, I wanted to just mention when you were discussing climate and culture and educators in the building coming out to the hallways to assist with students getting to the next destination, the superintendent looked at each other and smiled, given one of our many visits to Mount Pleasant, and it saw the hallway traffic in the building. So really glad to hear that our educators have stepped in to help out, and I want to thank them as well. In terms of what you mentioned with the trauma-informed trainings for the educators. Can you talk a little bit about what that, have you received any feedback from the teachers? Have they found that component to be important professional development?
So a lot of them have. A lot of them, I did a survey after our last PD day just so I could kind of hear their thoughts. A lot of them, there was a lot of positive feedback about it. There were some teachers that it was a little triggering for them to talk about and to be about. Those sessions were run by our school social worker and they were run by our school psychologist. So in that way, they had the support that they need when doing trauma-informed schools. So there is a difference in the way that they do speak with the students because that was the most important piece to me. But first, we had to have the teachers understand their trauma, where they come from, self-identify, and then that way they'll understand their part that they play in the relationship that they are building and how they speak with students.
Excellent. I think it's a training that, I would like to see, the district continue to roll out throughout the course of the school year. As a social worker myself, I can sit here for hours and talk to you about trauma-informed care, but I'll save you that this evening. My final question for you is with regards to end of the year goals. And I looked at what you had here, and they all, I think, are appropriate. The one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and what I'm about to say doesn't pertain to Mount Pleasant only. I think it's an issue in the district that myself and other board members have banged their heads up against the wall to try to resolve, and that is with regards to chronic absenteeism. And I see you smiling already, so I think you have an idea where I'm going with this. With the great start that you've had here at Mount Pleasant, can you speak a little bit about what student attendance has been like, one, and two, you have several of the community specialists at your school, and I'm curious to hear the role that the community specialists play in addressing absenteeism.
Okay, so the first thing I did was to structure the way we address absenteeism. So how that works is each community specialist is over a grade level. The grade level, that community specialist is working with the guidance counselor. The guidance counselor has an admin that oversees all of it. We're making sure we've set up, community specialists have meetings every single week, a standing meeting every week to talk about the absent students that are absent per grade level. From there, we go through the plan. So the plan of support, so that could be a home visit, that could be just reaching out to the family to see what the problems are, if it's transportation, that type of thing. Case by case basis, they go through and break down each and every individual situation. So within that, we have been able to see some areas of need and been able to fill them through different programs, community specialists hooking them up with different avenues and different places to be able to help them out, help them with transportation to school, getting to the bus, things of that nature. So we attack it that way, we track it that way. It has helped to kind of clean up absenteeism in its face. We're still working with it, but we have made an improvement. We are at 70% at least every week right now. So we are working to move those numbers up. But it's literally a case by case basis, and each grade level team, targeted team, is going in to look at every student who is chronically absent.
Wonderful. It sounds like you're saying that the community specialists are playing a role in outreaching students, meeting families, finding out what the barriers are, and working with them to get them into school. The last comment that I'm going to mention, I've gone to Mount Pleasant a couple of times with the superintendent to observe and help out. One of the things that I noticed is it seems like the RIPTA buses come pretty frequently. And I get it that the the buses have to drop off riders in the area. But my concern is that students are, whether they're coming from Kennedy Plaza or they, sections of the city, are arriving at school late, and they have the bus to bring them there. And so, I'm not sure if we have looked at, connecting with RIPTA with regards to, listen, this is when school starts. Obviously, RIPTA has to go in that direction to drop students off, right? But I'm not sure if there's a way where we can slow down the number of buses that come to Mount Pleasant after, the time they're supposed to be there. I went to Hopi, and at a certain time, the bus didn't go to Hopi any longer. It went to the east side, but it didn't go to the school. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are, or if there's been any internal discussion about how we can address the buses that continue to come. Because I was there for about an hour, and I think we had maybe 2 buses arrive. It was well after the start of school, and I'm saying to myself, how can we address chronic absenteeism? How can we ensure that students are in the classroom receiving instruction if the buses continue to come at multiple times throughout the morning? So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about it, or any way that we can address the issue.
So in the afternoon, I'll start with positive. In the afternoon, RIPTA has 8 buses parked in our parking lot and right on the street. So in the afternoon, we have enough to get them home. In the morning, we have maybe 3 buses that come by, about 3, right before time for school. We've called, we've complained, we've emailed, we've tried. They said there's nothing they can do about getting us more buses in the morning. So if they provided us with the amount of buses in the morning that they do in the afternoon, our kids would be in class on time. But right now, we have 3 buses in the morning.
Okay. So 3 buses are there in the morning compared to 8 buses
In
that
the
are there in the
afternoon.
afternoon to take students home. Okay. So this sounds like something that I think certainly we can help you all with, because I can't fathom why we can't have the same amount of buses in the morning if it's going to mean that our students are there on time. Okay. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Are there any additional comments or questions from board members? Superintendent, did you want to? Oh, Dr. Deidre. Feel free to jump in.
Okay, so I think, Mr. Escobar, you had asked about support, and I think just in general to everyone's idea too around making sure that we celebrate when things are going well. I would say, next week is teacher appreciation, and if it would be nice, you asked for support. If folks wanted to stop by, we have a number of events that are planned to just recognize our teachers, because they too have been through a lot during this transition, and they deserve to be recognized. So that's my little plea. If you guys want to come by and say thank you to our teachers and just give them that encouragement, because they're really the ones too making these gains as well. So they deserve that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. If you could just leave that information before you leave for board members, I think folks will make every effort to try to accommodate the request. Okay. Any final thoughts?
I think
Let's go on.
Yeah, I think some of this, President Thomas, might be offline, especially on like chronic absenteeism. But I've been thinking about just like meeting. So with the pandemic, right? A lot of people have been working from home. Students have been learning from home. You see situations where people are complaining about going back into the office, like a physical space, right? And you see like companies trying to create a whole bunch of incentives. Hey, we'll do X, Y, and Z to just get you in the building. And sometimes I think about with students on this issue, maybe we overthink it in terms of what actual incentives for high school students, especially like to just bring them in. Could it be like a lot? You attended 5 days of the week. You're part of a lottery. You can win $100 gift card to blah blah blah. We're gonna have pizza. We're gonna have something really fun, exciting, engaging in schools to like drive up attendance. And the only reason I thought about this, I teach sort of like a once a week class at a charter school about intro to nonprofits, and I have this one student, unfortunately, that's not as attendance. And one day I'm like, all right, we're gonna have pizza, we'll do a project. That student came and that student was engaged in the whole classroom, right? And I was like shocked. I'm like, I haven't seen it, for whatever reason, I haven't seen this person, but pizza here, engaged, and it just made me think like maybe when the aspect of absenteeism, especially for older students, maybe there's ability to be just creative. And I don't know if other districts that deal with these problems are thinking about it in that way, and maybe that's an offering question, but yeah, I'm ideas. I just felt like I had to like just share that sort of brain dump.
No, I appreciate you sharing it, Mr. Escobar, and I think we shouldn't leave any stone unturned in terms of addressing chronic absenteeism, particularly as we emerge from the pandemic and we want all of our students back in the classroom. Final thoughts or comments from board members?
I haven't said anything, but my face was also smiling as a parent. My heart just hurt last month hearing about all the problems that were happening at Mount Pleasant, and not in my wildest dreams that I thought that you turn it around so much in a month's time. So congratulations to your whole team, to your teachers, to your students who are working hard, and thank you for engaging parents. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. Final thoughts from board members? There being none, Ms. Delaney, again, thank you so much to you and your staff. Keep up the good work. We look forward to hearing more from you in the future. Take care. One second. I'm just gonna go through this. You said it.
Every day. I feel like every Was it a birthday thing? I'm so happy.
Okay. Next on the agenda is executive session items 20 through 23. You have to read them all, Mr. Ruggiero? They're all the same? Okay, perfect. So items 20 through 23, executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-4 and 42-46-5 AI personal non-renewals. This requires a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
President Thomas.
Aye.
Vice President Garcia.
Aye.
Mr. Escobar.
Aye.
Dr. Goldberg.
Aye.
Mr. Nunez.
Aye.
Mr. Stevens.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. We stand in executive session. I'm sorry, is there a motion? No. Yeah, we did all, right, motion carries. Yeah, we stand in executive session.
I have one. Yeah, no. Shit, I just, I'm trying to understand. But that would be great. Yeah. You? I saw you over there. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Is this for?
My God, I think if there was budget.
Charles, who do you want to?
Yes, I have one more before Mr.
Oh, you want to
Ross.
start with him first?
I'd like to start with the other one first. I'll just give you guys a brief synopsis as well. That is a very good catch. Do we pause this or do we just end it? How do I pause it?
In stream for the time being.
Okay.
We're not live anymore, I don't think.
I think you go to end first, right?
I think that is out altogether. I can always go back.
They got students.